Daniel Schreiber took his fitness app from launch to $3 million a year in just 2 short years. He might just be a marketing genius, and when I share with you how he did it, you'll see why I say that. Now, of course, it wasn't easy getting started.
We launched it and started selling it before we even finalized like how we were going to do it. That's just like how desperate we were to like bring in cash. Being an entrepreneur is like jumping out of a plane and then building the parachute on the way down.
But what happened next was pure business genius.
If the experience was incredible, when they get on the call with you, it's going to be a no-brainer.
A former PE teacher turned entrepreneur, he's transformed his wife's fitness influence into Taiwan's leading female fitness empire. Well, he's built a $3 million funnel, and today I'm going to be breaking it down for you, explaining how he built a massive following of over 170,000 people, the funnel he uses to get new customers for free, and what they do behind the scenes that brings in all of the profit.
If you focus on that one constraint and put all your energy into it, your business will grow, like period. That's just what will happen.
Hello, and welcome to the Art of Selling Online Courses. We're here to share winning strategies and secret hacks from top performers in the online course industry. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Really glad to be here.
So there's a few specific bits of your business I really want to dive into, but could you explain, like in just a few minutes, like how you got to where you are today? Like what was your journey?
Yeah, so 2019, we had already done something where we were working with Candace, who's my wife and co-founder, and trying to sell her fitness courses online through like a white label app. And we came to the realization that we wanted to own our own product. And so that's why we wanted to create our own app. And so that's when we, in summer of 2019, we met our co-founder, Benoit. And so the three of us partnered together and we created Newly app. And so from then, it's been just a continual evolution of continuing to improve the product and try to find more ways and better ways to grow the company. Because we started off with just the app, and then 2 years after just having the app, we realized that we needed to have other things to be able to sell in the back end to our existing subscriber base. And that's how we ended up launching the online coaching. So we launched online coaching 2 years ago, and we've grown it since then all the way till now.
Nice. And how much does the app cost?
So the app is we have 3 different pricing options. For the monthly option, monthly subscription is going to be roughly about 15 US. And then for quarterly, it's about 33 US. And for annual, it's around 90 US.
Okay. So the app itself is really cheap. And that includes, like, you mentioned about the courses. Does the app include all of those courses, or how does it kind of structured? What do people get in there?
Yeah, so the courses that I was talking about was we used to have a course before we created Newly app. We just had a white label app where my wife was putting her fitness course onto that app. Then once we launched Newly, then we kind of like shut that down, and then we just focused in on Newly. But one of the other things that we had tested out that we launched 2 years ago and we did for the past 2 years was we had an online nutrition course. And so that was another one-off product that we did in aside from the app subscription and online coaching. And that one is more of a, like, we host that course on Teachable, and then they can just go and get access to that nutrition course.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you've got, I think, like 13,000 people using the app. What's the kind of churn rate on that? Like, how many people are dropping out?
Yeah, so the monthly churn rate is about 10%. So churn, it's interesting you bring that up because it's something that for a new entrepreneur was very eye-opening, because in the beginning you think, oh, I'll do a subscription and every month I will just make more than the last month because it'll just keep building month over month over month. And so you get super optimistic about that until you learn about this thing called churn, which is that just because they are subscribed does not mean they're going to stay subscribed forever. And so we've kind of hit a like settling point right around like 13,500 subscribers. And so over the last year, we've just been kind of like fluctuating around that amount because we bring in just enough subscribers to replace the ones that are leaving every single month.
And how are you bringing in new people? What's your traffic sources for that?
Primary traffic source is going to be divided between our own social media pages and our like Meta Google ads.
Got it. And so what's the process? What kind of content are you creating on social media? Like what's your main traffic? What's your main social media you're using? Is that Instagram or what's the
Yeah, Instagram is the main one, and then YouTube is second, but Instagram by far is the primary one.
so what kind of content do you share on Instagram to build up your audience?
So a lot of it is going to be more educational type content. From time to time, we switch it up a little bit. We will do like some humor-based stuff, stuff that's people would want to share. We'll also do a lot of testimonials or user interviews, before, after transformations, things like that.
Okay. And what size is you following on Instagram?
I believe it's 174,000 right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So big size audience. How long have you been building that for? Was that even before starting the app?
Yeah, so we started building that about a month before we launched, just to start to build the hype up around everything, and then we launched, and yeah, so it's been 4 years or so.
Okay. That's strong. 174,000 in 4 years. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that mostly your wife who's like the face of the brand, or how's that work?
Yeah, so she has a pretty big following on social media as well. I think it's around 350,000 right now. And so when we launched Newly, that was one of the strategies that we used that really helped us out in the beginning was we didn't just use her image. We strategically partnered with three other of the top female fitness influencers in Taiwan to be able to launch it as well. Now, it also happened that the other three fitness influencers were also good friends of my wife, Candace. So that definitely helped in order to be able to like get them to partner with us.
Okay. So your wife is already a popular fitness influencer in
Yeah.
Taiwan. She's friends
Hmm.
with other fitness influencers. Okay.
Yep.
Great start before launching a business. Nice.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you've used that and you partner with these other people and they're all like faces of it. So do they all promote it as well on their own social media accounts?
Yeah. So what we did for that is we just set up an affiliate program, and then so they could promote it. So then they would just get a commission for every person who they brought into the app.
And is that a big part of the driver of leads, their accounts, or is it mostly from the newly
Yeah. So when we first started, we actually um, were just doing that primarily.
okay.
We only did a little bit of Facebook ads in the very beginning. So it was really like influencer marketing that
Hmm.
helped us to launch from day one. And then we really leveraged that a lot, especially in the early years.
Got it. Okay. So to get people into the app, we've got the newly app, we've got Candace's account, you've got
Mhm.
the other fitness influencers accounts, all
Yeah.
promoting the app. When you promote it, where are you sending people to? Do you just send them straight to like, is it Apple and Android? And are you
Yeah.
sending people just to the app page, or is there a step in between? How does that work?
Yeah, so we constantly experiment with different methods. So we go back and forth between sending them directly to the app stores, or we will send them to our own landing page. So we'll process the payments via Stripe instead of through the Apple and Google stores. The difference is the Apple and Google stores, they take a higher percentage commission compared to Stripe, but the conversion rates are way higher on Apple and
Mm,
Google. That's also why they're able to uh, charge a premium in that
yeah,
aspect. So that's why we kind of experiment back and forth between the two. Yeah.
got it. How much do they take? Like 15% or something?
Yeah, so when you're in the small business program, when you're under $1 million of net revenue, not like gross revenue, but net meaning like after 15%, what you keep is
Mhm.
under 1 million, then you are in the small business program. But then once you exceed that, then you don't get that benefit anymore, and then they just charge you 30%.
Do they charge you 30 on everything or just on the additional bit above a million? Because
It
otherwise
then
that's a
becomes
mad
it
jump, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, it becomes 30% on everything. So it's like,
Oh,
yeah, it's like you got to be careful if you want to cross that threshold.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. So you've got this set up. You're promoting the app. You've got fitness influencers, including your wife, who are doing the promotion. You're sending people to either the app store or to your own pages to take that subscription. That's all working. At what point do you decide? You said it's like 2 years ago, I think. But
Yeah.
what made you decide we're going to add on this coaching program?
To be completely honest, we were running into a major cash flow issue. We were
Okay.
like, it was getting really, really bad. And the reason is because we launched at probably the best time in history during COVID.
Hmm.
It was
Yeah.
unintentional. Like we started working on this in 2019, and it was initially going to be an app to help females learn how to go to the gym because that was one of the things that my wife identified and that she had a very strong passion for was when she first started going to the gym, she felt like she didn't know where to begin and she couldn't find the resources she needed to do that. And so that's what drove her to create this app. Fast forward to when we launched in March of 2020, literally when COVID is just starting, we're like, okay, well, we probably need to do something a little differently because gyms are starting to shut down. So we made a pivot, and literally a month after launching, we released a bunch of new programs into our app, which were all home workouts, and it worked beautifully. So that pivot was amazing, and we were able to ride that for the next 2 years. However, well, not quite 2 years, because about 1 year afterward, then, things are starting to get back to normal and we start to see a decline. And the writing's on the wall, but we weren't exactly sure what to do at that point until it gets to a point where, like, okay, we're starting to have really big issues because during COVID, we're like, oh, wow, this is just how it's going to be. And we're going to have these amazing, like, low cost to be able to acquire the customers, and like people are going to spend a ton to like buy the annual plan and everything like that. But then, that started to change. So it was really out of desperation. We're like, okay, what exactly can we do? Initially, one of the first thoughts was physical products. And interestingly, we had kind of tried that out a little bit before this became a really big issue. And it was a bit challenging for us. No one knew how to do physical product sort of stuff. And the biggest deterrent for us is that it's launching anything with physical products is very capital
Hmm.
intensive. And we realize that probably not something we want to do when we're very strapped for cash right now.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, what else can we do? And we were actually surveying our audience because one of the other things that we've done is build a large private Facebook group. And so that private Facebook group has been really key to getting a lot of user feedback. And so we just asked them, like, what's some of the things that you would like to see? And overwhelmingly, the feedback seemed to be regarding like online coaching because the app was great, but a big thing that people lacked was the accountability and like getting more help in that regard. And so we decided to launch the online coaching. And it was literally one of those moments, where they say like being an entrepreneur is like jumping out of a plane and then building the parachute on the way down. Like it literally felt like that because we launched it and started selling it before we even finalized like how we were going to do it. That's just like
Yeah.
how desperate we were to like bring in cash because we're bootstrapped, so we're not venture backed or anything like that. So we have to kill what we eat, so to say. And so that's what we had to do, and thankfully it worked out.
Okay. How come you guys were cash strapped? Because it sounds like a great business.
Yeah.
What were all the costs that were causing that to be an issue when it started to decline? Is it a lot of developers or like where's that cost coming from?
Yeah, so part of it
Lavish
is
lifestyle?
no, so nothing on that end really. It was just really just being new business owners, not really understanding how to run a business in terms of like how to manage cash because we would get in cash and we're like, okay, now we can like go hire this person and go hire that person. We can like try to grow the business because our whole thing was we wanted to keep trying to grow. But the more people you hire, then that obviously adds into the overhead. Instead of like trying to figure out how to make the team that you have be more productive, the thought was, oh, well, let's just hire another person and like do more things, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that was definitely a mistake we made in the early days on that side of thing because we're like, oh, we have money, let's just go spend it and like buy more things to build the business. Yeah,
Mm. Yeah. It's so easy to do that. I've spent so much money on things. I'm just like, oh, well, we've got some money in the bank. Let's try this. And
yeah,
it's like, okay, that's fine, except have you got everything in place that means that that thing is actually going to work? Or you
right.
just throwing money at something and it's like, oh, yeah, that didn't work again. Damn it. Here's another 15,000 spent on growing this that didn't work. And so after when you look back at it, you're like, That was so frustrating. I can't believe I
Oh
did that.
yeah.
But at the time, it's like, yeah, this could work. This
Right.
might bring us
Right.
another, however, if it just works, this is going to bring us this much money. Oh my God.
Definitely. Definitely.
Okay, so in a minute, I realized I missed a bit of a step there. One of the things was we got as far as the coaching,
Yeah.
and you've launched that, right? But one of the other things you mentioned was that you've got Facebook ads running, and I
Hmm.
think Google ads, you said as well, Meta and Google ads running
Yeah.
into getting people into the app. And that you said that was maybe about half of the total traffic was from ads?
Roughly. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
ballpark. Okay. How much does that cost? What's the kind of spend on that one? Because that's one of the things I think a lot of people, once they've tapped out their organic audience, are like, okay, cool, I can do ads, but then they don't have a great way of getting those ads to convert. It sounds like the App Store's actually been a bit of a, because you've got an app as the front end instead of a
Yeah.
course, is a
Yeah.
bit of a boon for you because it converts already. People trust it already.
Right.
How much are you spending per click? How much are you spending per new subscribe or new trial? How many people convert to a customer?
Yeah. So in terms of the rough cost that we're spending every single month, it's give or take around 40 to 50,000 that we spend in paid media. Now, that's just paid media. We obviously have our marketing team cost and other things like marketing related, but just in terms of like raw paid media, that's like how much we're approximately spending per month in that regard. So some of the things that we pay attention to is, for example, like we look at the cost per install when we're looking at promoting the app. So we're trying to go for about $5 roughly per install is what we're looking at.
Okay.
But then when it comes to some of the other metrics, like on average, what we're seeing is our CAC for just in terms of the paid media
Sorry,
is
just
roughly,
who doesn't know, can you explain
yeah,
what CAC is?
yeah, sorry. So yeah, CAC is going to be cost of acquiring the customer. So the way that we look at it is twofold. We have the CAC when it comes to calculating everything overall for the um, all the marketing spend. And then we have the CAC when it comes to just looking at it from the ad spend. And then we take a look at, okay, how much are we spending on the ads? And then what's the return that we're getting on that end? So typically for us, it's about like a one-to-one. If we're looking like the entire marketing budget and then what we get from the app users, it's roughly about one-to-one when we're calculating things out. When we take a look at the well, I'll throw another term here, LTV, so lifetime value to CAC ratio.
Hmm.
So for us, it's about a one-to-one ratio. And that's okay with us because we know that it's a front end product and we can make it up on the back end through the online coaching. So that's one of the things that we realize through trial and error, like just how important it is to know your numbers in that regard. Because once you know your numbers, then you can really start to dial things in. So for us right now, that's kind of where we're sitting at and why we've been consistently averaging about $40 to $50 in terms of $40 to $50,000 per month in terms of the ad spend. Because we find that if we start to spend a little more, there's a few things that happen. Is one, the frequency starts to get a little bit higher because we're in a smaller market. We're in Taiwan, so the population in Taiwan is only 23 million, and then you factor in that we're only targeting females, so that immediately eliminates like half the population right there. And then we segment it down to age 35 to 45 is really our main target audience. So now we're about to like 6-7 million of like possible um, audience size that we could be targeting in that regard. So that does limit our budget a little bit in that regard. But recently, one of the things that we're looking at is trying to expand how we do our marketing instead of just like the direct response aspect, but more of a branding play as well. And then also shifting to more lead focused and then being able to leverage that to as a way to increase our marketing spend.
Okay, so when you say lead focus, do you mean like having lead magnets that you're pointing people to as well as the apps, or how do you mean?
Yeah, so having lead magnets, that's one of the things that was recently discussed with our marketing director is to leverage that because one, it can then be able to get people into the app. Because right now, the primary focus we have for the ads is just getting them to download, install, and subscribe on the app.
Hmm.
But maybe there's a way, even though we do have a free trial for the app, one of the thoughts we had recently in our marketing team discussion was, what if we took it a step back? And if we take a look at how marketing is done globally, one of the things that's very popular is like having a lead magnet that is completely for free. Obviously, well, free, but in exchange for an email, right? So doing something of that nature and then getting them into the app and or the coaching.
Yeah. 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 The front end funnels that we ever use, that you've kind of got options to choose from, are webinars, but webinars is really for stuff that you're selling a higher priced offer, because you just have too many conversion points within it. They've got to register, and then they've got to attend, and then they've got to actually complete the webinar, and then they've got to get to the sales page. And so you kind of need something a few $100s upwards there.
Yeah.
Or a tripwire funnel, which is like have a low ticket front end thing, which is very similar to what you've got. So then it's like, you could create another tripwire funnel of like, one small course or something like that. Or a challenge, which really challenges do work in the fitness space pretty well. Have you
Yeah.
looked at those at all?
Yeah, so challenges is definitely something we do because it's in the app itself. So what we'll do is we'll every month we will either be putting in new content into the app in the form of like a new program, or we'll be putting like a limited time challenge that they can access in the app, but only for that period of time. And so we'll leverage the two of those. And then that challenge will be something where we'll then create a new landing page. So back to your question earlier about like, do you send people to the app store, or like how do you send, where do you direct your traffic, right? So that would be a situation in which we would actually have a landing page, because then the landing page allows us to use long form copy, include more information about the challenge that we're running, and then give them more information about like what the challenge is and whatnot, and then run the ads directly to that challenge page, and then get people to sign up from there. And then once they download and install the app, then within the app itself directly, they can just hit a button to join the challenge.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So in order to join the challenge, they have to sign up for the free trial for the app. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. You mentioned you had a Facebook group. Do you ever do ads promoting the Facebook group?
No, because it's a private Facebook group, so we can't exactly
Okay.
promote just to that. Because what we do is we once they join the app, one of the things that is part of like the onboarding journey when they enter the app is we encourage them to join the private Facebook group community.
Got it. Okay, cool. All right. So now you've got people into the app through either the ads or through Instagram. What percentage of people who sign up for the free trial convert to being a paying customer?
Percentage of free trial convert to being a paid customer?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was approximately 40 to 43%. Recently, we did some changes, and it has dropped down to roughly about 35 to 38%. And the change that we did is we removed, actually, because I mentioned the three different price points that we have, monthly, quarterly, annual. We recently removed the quarterly plan. And the theory behind that is because two things. One, it would help increase the first average order value when they first sign up. And the second thing is it would also then increase the lifetime value, the LTV of the customer as well. So we did this change, and actually that's what's happened is that average order value has increased as a result. It's gone from, on average, the first transaction is $35 to now it's about like $42. Now, the downside though is the conversion rate has dropped. And when we extrapolated and looked into the numbers, we realized the reason is because the quarterly plan always had the highest conversion rate. The quarterly plan actually had a 50 to 55% trial to paid conversion rate, whereas the monthly and the annual only had about a 35 to 38%, 33 to 38% conversion rate. So when you remove the quarterly plan, then of course the conversion rate will drop because that's the one that had the highest conversion rate. But the benefit though is that the average order value and the LTV has now increased. So that's just a consequence we need to deal with for now. We're obviously looking into see, okay, what else can we do to increase the conversion rate? But initially, what we've looked into and realizing is because a number of our plans are approximately a quarter, like they last 3 months, we find that many people will sign up with the intention of like signing up for 1 quarter because they can complete a plan and then cancel. So then it makes sense economically for them just to sign up for the quarter rather than like a month, which is going to be the most expensive, or annually. So we haven't figured out that yet, but that's kind of like what we're trying to determine.
Does the has the average revenue per trial gone up or down now with that? Because you've got an increased
Yeah.
AOV, but you've got a decreased conversion, and I can't do it in my head to figure out if those two, which
Yeah,
way it
so
cancels out.
so yeah, the increased AOV is that increased revenue per trial because the trials that we're offering are from like they have to select a plan before they can begin their trial. Now, actually, literally last week we launched a new test, which is removing the trial for the monthly plan, and so therefore people can only get a 7-day free trial if they select the annual plan. And again, the whole point is to see what we can do to try to increase the average order value and also thereby increasing the LTV as well. Now we literally just launched that, so unfortunately I don't have any any data to share with you guys in terms of what that looks like. But in a month we'll have some data in terms of how that resulted in.
Got it. Okay, cool. So we've got people getting to the trial page either on the App Store or on your own pages with Stripe account. We've got this conversion of something in the ballpark of 35 to 40%, kind of varied after changing your trial to actually becoming a paying customer. What's then the average customer lifetime value that you're getting with people? I know obviously it varies depending on whether it's annual or monthly, and it will change now that you've changed those things, but about what kind of amount is it?
Yeah, so and it's also interesting because it depends if they're purchasing on the App Store or if they're purchasing on the website. So if they're purchasing on the app stores, the average LTV is about $90. If they're purchasing on the website, though, it jumps to about $120.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just realized I threw in an acronym a minute ago that I didn't explain. AOV is average order value for anybody who
Yeah.
doesn't know that
Yeah.
one. And if I've included any others that you don't know, email me and I apologize and I'll tell you what they are.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we've got people signing up. You're making the money back, but you're just breaking even at that front end with the
Yeah.
apps. That's getting you tons and tons of new people in every month. Great.
Right.
Okay. So then you've got the coaching on the back end. So you
Yeah.
started that a couple of years ago. What percentage of people this might not be quite the right question because I know you're quite booked up with the coaching, but like what percentage of people then convert from being an app user to being a coaching client?
Yeah, so that is the challenging part because we do have a capacity issue. So there's no actual way of like knowing what
Yeah,
that is, like what the ascension percentage is, because we put the offer out there, but not everyone can be able to have an opportunity to join the coaching. So it's a good problem to have in that sense. Like that's kind of the constraint that we're working on solving right now.
so how many coaching clients have you got at the moment? 600 and
Yeah,
something,
just
right?
over 600. I think it's like 644 or something right now. Yeah.
Okay, and how much are they paying a month
So
or a quarter or
yeah,
however it works?
we have it broken down so they can when they first sign up, they sign up for a 3 month plan, and we recently just increased the prices.
Mhm.
And the prices previously were about 1,300 US for or 12 yeah 1,300 US for 12 weeks, and then we increased that to 1,900 for 12 weeks. Now, we haven't yet raised the renewal pricing yet because the renewal
Mhm.
pricing, how it works is they sign up for 12 weeks, and then after that, we renew them. We encourage them to renew for a year. So for the annual plan, the price right now is roughly about 3,300 US, but we'll see like if and how much we increase that pricing to.
Got it. Now, one of the things that I have been plugging on this podcast, and I'm going to be plugging more, is that people should set up coaching. People who have courses and memberships should set up coaching programs,
Yeah.
because the amount of revenue that you can make from a coaching program is massively more than you can make from just selling courses. Or at least it's like, if you've got one, you can double your revenue if you add the other in as well. What does it
Yeah.
work out as for you in terms of I know that obviously the capacity is a constraint, but like
Mhm.
total revenue that you get from the app versus from the coaching at the moment, how do they compare?
In terms of the percentage split, like what percentage of revenue comes from
Hmm.
coaching, what percentage from
Yeah.
so this year we hit a milestone a few months ago, which is that coaching surpassed the app revenue. So I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I know it's maybe like 55% now comes from coaching and like 45% comes from the app.
Okay, and that's with capacity constraints. So as you increase capacity, that's
Yeah,
going to go to a higher percentage, right?
exactly.
Okay. So this is something that I think most people so a lot of people who are running a course business are like, I like my easy life. I don't have to deal with delivery stuff. I don't have to have manage that big of a team. This is all super simple and straightforward to run. And if that's you and you're happy with your life, great. You
Yep.
know, I'm not trying to convince you what kind of business you should run, unless you're not happy with how much it's grown and you are stuck and you can't grow it any further.
Yeah.
Obviously, first thing is go and implement your lead magnets and grow your email list and run your email promotions, everything that I bang on about on this podcast all of the time. And if you want help with that, just drop me an email. We're here to help. But if you've done those things and you're still stuck and you want to grow the revenue more, then coaching is a great way to be able to do that, having that coaching program. What's the downsides to it in terms of managing the team or managing standards for it? Or like, what's the stuff that is hard about running the coaching side?
There's definitely a lot of challenges, that's for sure. Um, in terms of challenges, the first things that come to mind are the fact that coaching, depending on how you're doing coaching, right? If you're doing group coaching, then it's a bit easier. If you're doing one-to-one coaching, like what we offer, then the challenge is scaling human labor is always going to be challenging, more challenging and difficult than scaling media or code. And that's what a course is, right? The course is hosted by code and it's media that you put on there. So in theory, it's infinitely scalable. You can have, 1 million people tomorrow buy your course, but you couldn't coach 1 million people because you're limited by human capacity. So that's definitely one of the first issues right there, is because you need to scale up the human deliverability in that aspect. The other things that come to mind are in terms of like, for example, ensuring that the quality that is delivered is the same across the board. That was one of the big things that from the very beginning when we launched it, we wanted to ensure that we had consistent quality across the board. So regardless of whatever coach that you are working with, because you're working with a newly coach, you're going to get the same consistent quality. And so that's really what we wanted to make sure happened. Now, in the beginning, it can be a little bit difficult to do that, but with the right systems and processes in place, you can definitely be able to achieve that. Yeah, so that's what I would say are the challenges. If you want to talk about positives, there's definitely a lot
Let's
on that
do
side
that.
as
Let's
well.
talk about the good stuff about it. I'm aware whenever I'm like plugging something and I'm banging on drum,
Yeah,
people might be like, yeah, but, so it's like, let's address that head on. Let's start
yeah.
with the stuff that's difficult. So what's the advantages of it?
So advantages are you, yeah, there's so many. I'll just kind of start going after them in any random order here. Like the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that you get to deal with way higher quality customers because someone who is paying you, for example, in our case, like average revenue per month from an app subscriber averaged out is like $9 a month. Whereas for the coaching clients, it's as high as $350, $400 a month. There's obviously a tremendous price discrepancy there. Now, as such, when someone is paying such a high premium for a product, you tend to get pretty good people that you experience as well, and who are buying that, because I can't begin to tell you how many like customer service issues we will get from people who want a refund on like the last month because they forgot to cancel or whatever, and like something happened or whatnot. And they'll often make a very big deal about something that is really kind of insignificant. Whereas for someone who's paying a really high premium, don't get me wrong, you may have some bad apples from time to time, but overall, for the most part, they tend to be a lot more understanding and reasonable in that regard. And so that was one of the other reasons why we also recently increased the prices, because we wanted to kind of filter out and increase the caliber of the clientele that we work with in that aspect. So that would be a big thing. And then another thing is, and I mean this 100% sincerely, which is you can help people get even greater results. Because when you're just, in our case, we just have a fitness app, you have no way of knowing like what they're going to do with that product on their own. Like you can do everything you can to provide the programming for them, to make the app incredible, to provide amazing programs. But at the end of the day, they're the ones who need to make the decision whether or not they're going to open the app and do the workout. But when you have a coach, that coach can be really invested into that individual and can really understand their struggles and coach them through the challenges that they're facing. And as a result, help them achieve absolutely phenomenal results that they wouldn't have been able to achieve on their own. And being able to see those transformations and hear those testimonials from clients is just incredible.
And I think one of the things that's really interesting there is if you start with the customer and you think, what do I need to do to make sure they get the great result? It can have a really big impact on what kind of coaching you set up.
Yeah.
So a lot of people assume if you're doing a coaching program, it's a group coaching program, and you guys are doing something more one-to-one. But then the way that you're doing it includes a number of really specific steps of like, okay, where is it that people are dropping out? Where is it they're going wrong? Where are people getting stuck? So you can address all of those things. And then you've got a Facebook group, which is a group thing, to provide more support in a different way. And you can like fine tune a lot of these things to make sure they exactly match what it is that somebody needs. And like you say, when you've got a course, you can't do most of that. You know, like maybe with a membership, you can include some kind of support, but here you can be like, right, what is it? Where are people getting stuck? Where are they going wrong? Where are they falling out? Why are they not succeeding? And one of the things that I know that you do is you track like how well do each coach's clients succeed. Can you talk through
Yeah.
that a little bit?
Yeah. So we have surveys implemented at each stage of the client journey. So right when they onboard and they have their very first onboarding call with their coach, before they even start the program, we have put them on an onboarding call with their coach. Right after that, an automated email is sent out, and we ask them to rate how the call went and give them an opportunity to give us any feedback. Right there, that's the very first step. We can identify if there have been any issues with how the onboarding call went with the coach, and we can immediately have that coach jump back in and try to help sort out any potential issues or miscommunications that the client might have had with their coach. Then after that, then we have another one at the 1 month mark, at the 2 month mark, and then at the end when they finish the course at 3 months. And so each of those points is a checkpoint for us to be able to determine, okay, if we receive a bad rating or we receive a bad comment, that's our chance to go in and try to proactively, in a sense, quote unquote, save the client before it gets to the point when they get to the end of the coaching and we ask them if they'd like to renew with us, and they say they don't renew, because in a sense the way we see it is the client has in a sense made up their mind whether or not they want to renew before they get on that final call with you.
Yeah.
If the experience was incredible when they get on the call with you, it's going to be a no-brainer. Like there's no quote unquote closing involved. It's just like they already know, like, hey, this has been an incredible experience, I wanted to keep going. Or vice versa. If they had a terrible experience, and usually like within the first 12, like 2 to 4 weeks, that's kind of when they've, in a sense, made up their mind, like if they're going to continue or not. them continuing for the remainder of the 3 months is really like, I'm just going to finish up this program because I paid for it, and then that's going to be it.
Mhm.
And so we want to make sure that the experience that they have within the very first month of them joining is so phenomenal that it becomes a no-brainer for them by the end of the 3 months to then continue.
Beautiful. Okay. So we've talked through, we've got the traffic sources that are bringing people in. We've got the how people are converting into the app, how they're converting from in the app to becoming a paying client, how people then convert to becoming a coaching client. Oh, actually, let's talk that part through. So you run a promotion that you have some spaces in your coaching.
Yeah.
What's the first step that happens there? Because you've got a really interesting way of doing this.
Yeah, so the method in which we do this is we heavily, heavily leverage our email and our social media to do this. To date, we've actually never run any paid ads for our coaching. So all our coaching clients are either coming from our own email list, which we acquire from our app when they become an app subscriber, or from our social media. So in a sense, these people have already known us. And so when we promote it, what we'll tell people is we are looking, we have an opening, we're looking for X number of clients, and then we send people to we have a whole landing page and a funnel that we built out to tell them more about what the coaching is and then to get them to sign up for it.
And what's the conversion rate, if you know it, from once someone gets to that page to the number of people who then apply to say they're interested?
In terms of, oh, like when they actually book the call with us?
Yeah, if they read the email, they
Yeah.
click through the sales page where you're describing the coaching,
Yep.
what percentage of those people then fill in the form to say, yes, I want to sign up for some coaching, or I'm interested in it at least?
Yeah, so last I checked is about 15%. It's been a minute though, so thank you for asking me that because I need to go back and check to see check to see what that is now. Yeah.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I was talking to Andy Morgan about this, and it's a it's an important step is finding out who are the people who are interested. He was saying how he was in a mastermind. I think I'm okay to share this. He said he was in a mastermind, and he said out of the people who apply, like 8 of them then follow through and fill out all the following forms and actually sign up for it.
Mm,
They don't do calls, but get through to the next stage. And someone was like, well, what about the other 12? What are you doing with them? Are you calling
yeah.
them? He's like,
Yeah.
no. They're like, pick up the phone, get on the
Yeah.
phone, call them up, get them
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that step there is like these people are now worth a lot of money. But okay, so
Oh yeah.
about 15% of people get to that page, they then actually fill in the form. And then what happens once they've filled that in to say that they're interested? Or what is it? Is it a form, or what is the next stage after if they think they're interested?
Yeah, so the whole funnel, I'll just quickly walk you through it, is they go to a page, it's a squeeze page, so we get their name and email in order before they can then watch a VSL, which stands for video sales letter. And so it's a 15-minute video in which we have a video that explains what our coaching is about and to convince them to join the coaching. And then after they finish watching that video, then if they continue, then it redirects them to a type form. And then it's a very detailed type form because we want to get as much information about them as possible. And then once they submit that form, then they will be taken to the final step in which they will then be able to book the call.
Okay. And that call, how does that work?
Yeah, so great question. We do something that is quite unique from many other people in the industry, in which we do, in a sense, would be like group sales calls. So we don't do well, we technically do have one-to-one sales calls. I'll explain that in a minute. But the main method that we use to sell people into coaching is a group sales call. And we call it a workshop method because that's how we kind of advertise it as well. Because obviously you're never going to tell a prospect that you want to sign up for a group coaching call because that's not going to convert well compared to telling them it's a workshop, right? So on the workshop, that's where we explain to them that we are are going to teach you the exact process we use to coach our coaching clients and how you can also take this same process to be able to get into the best shape of your life. So regardless of whether or not you decide to sign up for coaching, this is something that you'll be able to get value out of. The thing that we do is we actually charge a very small fee for this. It's approximately about 33 US dollars is how much we charge for this. This allows it to do two things. One, it ensures we have like a 95% show up rate to those calls because people paid for it, so they want to show up. The second thing is we discover that if you pay, by having them pay, they've kind of already invested a little bit into this. And so it's kind of that, sunk cost fallacy in play here, where they've already paid a little bit, they spent all this time, so they want to get something out of it, so that therein increases the likelihood that they will want to convert and purchase on the call. So on that call is actually when we do the selling, because we'll go through a whole presentation, and then after the presentation, we have some Q&A, and then we get into the pitch and explain how the product works, how much it costs, and then we'll just drop the Stripe links right there where they can purchase.
Got it. And how many people then convert from those workshops to signing up?
Yeah, so in the beginning, when it was my wife who was doing all the selling, she was able to convert at 55% closing rate. We then trained someone else to be able to do the closing, so it didn't have to just be my wife doing all the closing, and her closing rate was at 45% for these workshops. After we increased the price by 50%. The closing rate, of course, inevitably has dropped a little bit as well. Thankfully, it hasn't dropped terribly. For my wife, when she did it for about 2 weeks before she handed it off to our closer, it went from 55% down to 50%. So still pretty great.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And
so
you've gone $1,300 to $1,900.
Yeah.
Wow, that's strong there. Okay.
Yeah, definitely strong. Now, a big part is because I need to say a lot of it has to do with that fact that it is my wife doing the closing. Since she's the face of the brand, obviously she commands a lot of authority with that as a result. Now, for our closer, it's only been a week, so we have yet to see like what the results are going to be. But roughly so far, it's gone from about 45% down to between 35 to 40%, which is kind of what I had in mind of what it was going to be anyway. So if we can get at 40%, that's what I would like. If it drops down to 35%, okay, I can live with that. But ideally, I'd like to shoot for 40%.
And then the 60% who don't sign up straight away, what happens there?
Yeah, so we have another really interesting offer that we do, and we call it a scholarship coaching offer. And how it was born is because as part of our process of training our coaches, because we need to find a way to make our coaches being able to have the same quality standard that I talked about earlier, right? One of the ways that we decided to do that is we wanted to give our coaches, in a sense, like test clients, but we didn't know like how to do this. At first, what we did is we just had our own staff become coaching clients, and then some of their like friends and family just to sign up for free coaching. But then after a couple months, we quickly, exhausted those options. We're like, okay, we need more. We need more like test clients who can do it, who aren't paying. And then we came up with a great idea, which is okay. What if so I stole this idea actually just straight out, I think it was out of Alex Ramazzi's $100 million offer book, which is one of the things he had mentioned was the fact of one of his big, amazing offers that he was able to do was he would sell clients into his gyms and his coaching by saying like, pay this amount, and if we don't get you the results by the end, we'll completely refund you the entire amount. So I took a version of that. And what we do is we charge a significantly discounted amount. And instead of a 12-week program, it's just an 8-week program. And then we make it explicitly clear that these clients are going to be working with a coach in training. That's why we can offer this significantly discounted amount. And not only that, if they do everything that the coach says and they finish the entire program, then we will actually refund them that amount. Now, we will in fact refund them if they want, but what we try to do is we try to, use that to apply towards their renewal. So we'll say that, hey, you paid this amount. So for example, the amount we charge is roughly about $330. So we'll say you paid $330. So what we'll do is we'll just knock off $330 from your continuation into, continuing the program. So that worked beautifully, because going back to your question, what do you do with the 60% who don't convert? We will send them that offer. And then we will get a small percentage of people, roughly 10 to 20% of the people who didn't convert in the sales call, to then take us up on that offer. So it works beautiful, because it's just like this circle of life, because then we solve a bunch of problems, right? Because we solve the problem of we need more like clients that are in training, like test clients, to give our coaches in training so that they can practice. But at the same time, we also want to be able to give an offer to people who can't afford it at that particular price point, who we weren't able to close in the sales call. And then, that's another offer that we can give them. And then of the people who do end up taking that scholarship coaching package, about 20% do end up then converting into like a regular standard paying client. And so, that ends up working out pretty well.
Nice. Okay. I realize we're coming up to the end of the time we had slotted for this. Are you okay to keep going for a little bit longer, or do you need to jump off?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Great. Okay. You mentioned you do have one-to-one sales calls. Where does that fit in?
Yes. So we have in our sales pipeline, as I mentioned to you before, we have people who they view the VSL, the video sales letter, then they fill in the type form, then they book the call. We have a large amount of people who end up getting stuck in the pipeline, sitting at filled in the type form, but did not book a call. And one of the reasons potentially might be the fact that we do charge, $33 to join this workshop. So what we do is periodically we will email that segment of people who are in that filled in type form but have not booked a call, that segment, with an offer to book a free consultation call with one of our coaches. And then that is the one-on-one sales call.
Got it. And how do they convert?
Those actually convert really well. Prior to the price increase, our closer was closing them at 50%, which is great. Now, we haven't had enough data yet from since we raised the price. I think it's about 40% right now from what I checked, but it's not statistically significant enough to like give you a straight answer on that, because she's only done a handful of them so far. But I would hope that it stays right around 40%, because then that would mean that the price increase didn't, really kill the conversion rates.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's fantastic, not only from revenue, but from margin point of view as well with the coaches,
Yeah,
right? Because
right.
if you've got 50% higher prices, even if you had the same total amount of business coming through, your margin on it is way higher now, like way
Exactly.
higher.
Yeah.
What are the
Yeah.
margins like with the coaching? Like how much of the cost or the revenue that you get per
Yeah.
client is taken up by paying the coaches?
Yeah. So the right now it is about 70% gross margins. The target
Okay.
is 80%. And technically we would be at 80% if we don't include new coaches and coaches in training into that mix. If we just look at the coaching team, then it would be right around 80%. So this will then allow us, those margins to get even higher. And why does that come into play is because when a new coach joins us, for the very first 3 months, they undergo intensive training, and we don't give them any paid clients. So in a sense, the company is eating up those costs, and that goes into the gross margin in that regard. And then even when they do start taking on clients, for the next 3 months, they can only operate at up to 50% capacity. Then it's only at the 6-month mark, then we can give them up to like what the current capacity right now is about 50 to 55 clients per coach. And so then we can increase them to that amount. But once the coach is at 50 clients, then they're operating at an 80% gross margin rate.
Nice. Okay. And now I know one of the issues then was the amount of coaches.
Yeah.
How's that going? Because last time we talked, you were trying to recruit more
Yeah.
coaches, bring more people in, but it's hard to find people who are good enough. So how's that all going?
So one of the things we determined to do is to hire an in-house recruiter to bring on and help us find more coaches. So we're actually in the final stages of interviewing two recruiters, and hopefully one of them is the one that we will go with. And then starting in 2025, we'll have an in-house recruiter whose literally sole job is just to hire and find more coaches.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And how many, if you hit your goal, you mentioned that you want to grow to 8 figures.
Yeah.
How many coaches do you need to be at that level? Have you made estimates of that?
Yeah, I have that on a sheet. Yeah, it would take me a minute here to pull it up, but roughly I think it would be like 50 coaches, I think, in order to get to 8 figures, maybe a little bit more. But yeah.
Does the Taiwanese market allow for that, or are you going to need to expand to other countries, or like, do you think that you can do that just in Taiwan?
I'm confident that we can do that just in Taiwan. And I say that because I have a friend who has a very successful coaching program in the Netherlands, and he's been able to grow his coaching company to multiple 8 figures in revenue. And the Netherlands, actually, believe it or not, has a very similar population size to Taiwan. I think it's 25 million or something like that. So when I saw that, I'm like, okay, if he can do that in his population size, I think I could get to like half of that, at least in Taiwan, before, we need to expand to other markets.
It says Google says it's just under 18 million in Netherlands. So actually,
Oh,
you've
really?
got
It's
even
even less. Oh,
more
wow.
people.
Okay. Yeah, we have more
Yeah.
people in Taiwan. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, we can definitely try to keep growing.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What else are the barriers that are going to stop you from getting to that, or that you need to deal with to get to that 10 million mark? Do you need to increase the lead flow up front, or is it mostly about increasing that back end? Because you don't know yet, do you, what percentage
Yeah.
of people you can get onto the coaching? So I know you don't know the answer to this, but what do you think is the answer?
So it's just going to be um, a balancing game with the theory of constraints because the constraint we have now is on the deliverability. But as we're starting to solve this, I can already see that we're going to have like fast forward into going into 2025 and looking at the forecast we've set up, I can already see that in the end of Q1, like in March, we're already going to have a problem with not having enough closers to be able to do the number of workshops and sales calls we need to do in order to bring on the number of clients that we have forecasted out. So that's also another position that we're hiring for right now is to bring on more sales closers to the team to be able to fulfill that demand. Once we do that, then there will also be another problem that occurs, which is we need to make sure that we're bringing in enough leads. Now, right now, the method that we've been doing has been working to be able to fill in the number of like spots we have for either sales calls or workshops every single month. But very quickly, it's going to become a constraint because the existing list that we have may not be enough to either fill those spots or we'll need to find a new creative way to continually be able to fill in those workshop sales spots or one-on-one sales calls.
Got it. So, for anybody who doesn't know the term theory of constraints, could you talk people through what the idea of that is?
Yeah, so this is something that I absolutely love. It is a beautiful concept, and for any business owner out there, it's something that you really need to understand. There's a book on that. I think the title is Theory of Constraints by
It's
author
called
Eli Golding.
it's called the goal.
The Goal, yeah, that's right. The Goal. Great book. For the theory of constraints, essentially what it is that for every business, it's always going to, if you've heard the term like a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, that's a great way to think about the theory of constraints. Because if you have a chain in your business in terms of the operations, whatever the weakest link is, that then is going to be the constraint within the business. And then the whole point is if you can then focus all your effort on either solving or exploiting that constraint, then that's how the business will be able to grow. But until you solve that, then that will always then just be the constraint within the company. So in our case, our constraint has been our ability to scale the coaching. And the reason is because we don't have enough coaches to be able to take on the clients that we want to be able to bring into the coaching program. So there's two ways that we can solve that constraint. One is we can hire and train more coaches, or two, which we have been working on, is have those coaches be able to take on more clients. So they can, instead of handling, say, 40 clients, they can handle 60 clients. And then that can also be a method in which we can be able to solve that constraint. But then the whole thing with theory of constraints is once you solve one constraint, there will then be a downstream effect, like what I was just mentioning, which is, okay, now we have enough coaches, but then we don't have enough sales closers to be able to like close all the people that we want to bring into the program. And then it's just a continual effort of like figuring out what the constraint is and then solving the constraint. The reason why I love it so much is oftentimes as business owners, we struggle with figuring out like, what the heck am I supposed to work on? Like there's so many different things that I can do. What do I need to work on? The theory of the constraints will help you paint a very clear, crystal clear picture as to what you need to work on, because it's very simple. If you focus on that one constraint and put all your energy into it, your business will grow, like period. That's just what will happen.
I've got a training that I did about this specifically for course businesses, showing how do you identify what that constraint is. And one of the things, I'll kind of give the quick overview here. And I'm trying to think, as I'm saying this, like, how can I link to that? Because it was a training I did for the DC a few years ago. So I can't share it publicly, probably. But the basic concept is you need to add in for your business, what are all your numbers? You've got to have your KPI spreadsheet so you can see, okay, what are the conversion rates from, let's say, front-end traffic to people signing up for your lead magnet, or in your case for your app, what percentage of those people then convert to the next stage, and each of the way through the whole funnel all the way to the end, what's the number of people at this step, how many people convert to the next stage, what was the conversion percentage. But on its own, that doesn't tell you where to be focused, because what you need to know is what is a good benchmark number to be hitting for that. Now you're at like 40% conversion rate, let's say, with your group coaching calls. You don't know for definite yet, but somewhere in their ballpark. Yeah. Okay, if you happen to know, if the world was different and you knew that 80% was good, and that everybody else was getting to 80%, then you'd be like, oh, well, right, I should be putting work in this. But 40% is great. So it's like, okay, you're probably not going to get to much higher than 40%, probably. Mm-hmm. So therefore, that's not necessarily the one to work on. But you can look at it and go, oh yeah, but we know that the constraint here is number of coaches. Yeah. So right, okay, great. Now we're going to go work on number of coaches. Once you've got the coaches sorted, then you go back and go, right, what step in the funnel is the furthest from benchmark? And you want a step that is within the critical flow of the funnel. So if you've got something off to the side, but we also sell this course about nutrition. If you sell more of that, that doesn't like change the whole business. But if you can increase the conversion percentage from, let's say, whatever it was, 15% maybe of people who get to that coaching page and then apply to 20%, well, once you've got enough closers and you've got enough coaches and everything else, you go, okay, right, that would be a 33% increase in the business if I can improve that thing. And if you know that 20% is doable because you talk to a bunch of other business owners and they're all doing like 20, 25, then it's like, okay, so that's a good possibility of one to be focusing on. But most course creators don't know their numbers like you do. Like most people listening, they haven't put together their KPI spreadsheet. So I talk to you and I beg you, please, for the love of God, go and listen to the episodes that I've done on the podcast with Josip about putting together your KPI spreadsheet. I've detailed them all out. Go back through the archive and have a search. There'll be something, it'll be called something like, KPI or tracking spreadsheet, and it will be with Josip Belina. And put that spreadsheet together. And once you've got that spreadsheet, you can start to go through, especially if you listen to some of the episodes where I talk through the benchmarks for each step within the funnel, you can look at it and go, right, this is the step I need to work on. And if you want the really simple answer for most people listening, is that you're not doing enough email promotions. So start with that. If you're not sure, you should be doing an email promotion every month. So if you really don't want to do this and you just want the straight to the answer, that's probably what it is for you. Okay, so you're using the theory of constraints, which I love. I love that book. I've read that multiple times. I've been told there's also a comic book version of it, which is
Oh,
like
really?
slightly different, which I've not tried.
Nice.
The book, for anybody listening who's interested, is a fable. So it's told as a story of a business owner who is running a factory that's going to go out of business and they're in real trouble. And then he learns about the theory of constraints from a mentor and he kind of figures this all out himself as he's going through and like makes sense of it and uses it to completely turn the business around. And it's based on the practices that were used in, I believe, in Japan, in order when they really started to kind of implement this stuff within factories in order to make things work a lot more efficiently. But yeah, fantastic, fantastic system for business owners to be able to use to know where to focus their efforts. Okay, I think that's a good place to finish. This has been amazing.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time coming on and sharing so much. Um, I hope that you have inspired people listening to start setting up their own group coaching programs. We will see, we'll find out. If you have been listening to this and you think, yes, great, I want to learn more about like what Daniel's doing, like where can people go and check out? I know they're not necessarily going to be women in their 30s in
Yeah.
Taiwan, but if people want to go and
Yeah.
check out your app, they want to look at your website, where should they go?
Yeah, you can just go to newly.app, app, and then that's our website. They can find out more. And you can also search us in the App Store, Newly app, and then you can find the app there.
Anywhere else that people should be following you or looking you up?
Yeah, for me, I'm not too active on socials, but I am on Instagram. I like being on Instagram. Like if you DM me there, I'll reply. I have a LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm less active there, but yeah, usually Instagram is a good place to connect.
And what should people search for on Instagram to find you?
Yeah, just my name, Daniel.Schreiber.
Daniel.Schreiber. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have been listening to this and you want to 2x your course or your coaching revenue in 90 days, that's what we can do for you. If you're making $1,000 or more, up to even if you're making tens of thousands a month, hundreds of thousands, if you're making $1,000 or more from your course, your membership, or your coaching business, and you want to 2x your revenue, then book a call with me or someone from my team. Go to datadrivenmarketing.co/call and we'll have a chat and just talk through and make sure if we can help. Thanks so much for listening. And Daniel, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.